Literally been born in the church to now be at the pulpit preaching. To now be preaching is crazy to be in this position. Seeing so many people I've grown up with, friends, family, it's beautiful. Just got to thank God to be in this position. God is good. I'll start by asking you to turn your Bibles to Jeremiah 18, 1 to 6. Okay, this is good. When you're there, say there. When you're there, say that you're there. Jeremiah 18, 1 to 6. Okay, I think that's enough time. I'll start by reading. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Go down to the potter's house, and there I will give you my message. So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel. But the pot he was shaping from clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him. Then the word of the Lord came to him, and he said, Can I not do with you, Israel, as the potter does, declares the Lord. Like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand. And that verse itself laid the foundation for my sermon. As before anything else, this is the truth I want you to take away from this. You cannot build what God has not first shaped. Not in a relationship, not a marriage, not a future. If God has not shaped you, what you build will not hold. Let me tell you where this first begins for me. It begins with desire, not just the desire for a relationship, the desire to become a husband. From around 16 years old, I had the picture in my head. I wanted marriage, I wanted a wife, I wanted a family. I wanted a home that felt stable, loving, and godly. And that desire didn't come from nowhere. I grew up with my mum and my dad. To me, they were the perfect standard in my eyes of what a married couple would be, but also what parents were as well. But more specifically, as a young man growing up in this world, my dad was the example. From very young, I saw the way he carried himself, how he was respected in the church, amongst his friends, amongst his family. In every aspect of his life, he seemed like he was the gold standard in a sense. And I admired him. And at times, I even tried to copy him when I was younger. I remember hearing the stories from when me and Jude were young. He'd come in, my dad, Ryan, would come first with his wife, Kelly. And then behind him were his little sons, Tyler and Jude. Both of us, I've heard so many people talk about the fact that we were always the best dressed and we were many versions of our dad in our way. And for a lot of my younger life, I thought the path would be quite easy, just to follow my dad's footsteps. But sadly, he passed. And that left me in a strange place because I had the example, but I didn't have the blueprint. I knew what I admired, but I didn't know how to become it. And when you've seen something good, but don't know how to reproduce it, you start guessing. You start trying to build a life without knowing how it's meant to be built. And some people admit that, but a lot don't. So we perform, we copy, we pretend. We look like we know what we're doing, but internally we're figuring it out also as we go. And that confusion shows up in relationships. I made mistakes in my process of trying to navigate the world of relationships. I tried to force things at times, try to shape people in what I wanted. A lot of the time I thought that, growing up in church, seeing all the examples in the Bible that God's just going to give me my wife. The first person I think that comes into my life will be the right person. But very quickly I realized that was never the case. I thought that if I could change a person in a certain type of way, if she grows, if she becomes the example, this idea I had in my head, that everything would fall into place. But I learned something that was hard. I learned something that was difficult. If you have to force someone to become what you need, they were never who God meant for you to be with. I will. If you have to force someone to become what you need, they were never who God meant for you in the first place. And that's when God began to shift my understanding. Because if God has not shaped your heart, your desires will also be misled. Because the heart does not stay neutral. It bends, it drifts, it leans towards what feels good. And often that leads to selfishness. I believe we can all admit that our own desires often lead to only our own benefit. And something that I was taught from a fairly young age from one of my uncles is that the best type of relationships are the ones where both people are selfless, when both people go out of the way to make each day better for their significant other. But the heart itself is not always going to lead to that to be the case, because there'll be times where we want something but the other person doesn't want it. And only when you develop that level of selflessness will you be willing to go the extra mile, be okay to be uncomfortable in those moments for the betterment of the person you truly do love. I'm not sure if everyone knows it, but my girlfriend is here. And when I first saw her, I didn't see first what was inside. I first saw her beauty. And let's be honest, that's where many relationships begin. But here's the problem. What starts shallow cannot sustain something deep. Attraction is not wrong, but attraction is a terrible foundation. Because attraction asks, what do I feel? But love asks, what does it cost for me to care for you? Attraction is enjoyment. Love is about responsibility. Love is patient. Attraction says, I want you. Love says, I'm willing to grow with you. Proverbs 31:30 states that charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Now here's where it gets deeper. Because a lot of people don't just enter relationships with desire, they enter with history. And the history shapes expectation. When the past remains unhealed, the present becomes burdened with expectation. It was never designed to fulfill. Some people are not just entering relationships, they're entering with wounds. Things they didn't receive, love they didn't feel, affirmation they didn't hear, and without realizing it, they expect the person in front of them to make up for everything behind them. So now the relationship is no longer just about love, it's about compensation. And that's dangerous because you're placing a weight on someone they were never designed to carry. So let's say something. So let me say it simply. Don't make your present pay for your past. Don't make the person you meet now have to make up for the people who came before you. Because a lot of the time we grow up with trauma from young. It might have been a parent that didn't give you the amount of love that you needed, in the form of your mum not loving you the way you wanted, or in this case of a father not being present when you needed him the most, a friend being jealous of you when you needed support, or even in a relationship, your partner not truly having the right intentions for you, and all of these things we carry into the next stage in life with the next person that some of the times can be the person God has placed in your life. James 1:14 states that each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire. Look at Samson. Samson didn't collapse overnight. He drifted, he saw, he wanted, he took. No restraint, no reflection, no submission. As Philippa, ironically, did state before, Delilah wasn't the first person he came across. He had a wife before, and despite him being given a responsibility by God, he chased the lust of women, specifically women he had no business being with them being Philistines. And we look at him as someone that was so strong externally, but he was weak internally. And that's dangerous because you can look strong on the outside, but still be collapsing on the inside. And the tragedy of Samson is this: he could defeat his enemies, but not himself. And in the end, he was blinded, both literally and figuratively, because of lust, as lust blinds before it destroys. And if we compare Samson to Boaz, Boaz didn't rush, he noticed Ruth. But he didn't move impulsively, he honored her, he protected her, he created safety around her. He didn't just ask, do I want her? He lived like a man asking, can I care for her? This is maturity, this is formation, this is Christ-like love. If I go for another example, if we look at David, a man after God's own heart. Yet one moment of unguarded desire led to destruction. If we compare him to Joseph, Joseph was tempted repeatedly, but he ran. Why? Because he valued God over everything. So the question is not, do I feel something? The question is, am I being shaped by God? Because if God hasn't shaped your heart, you will call lust love. Because if God hasn't shaped your inner life, you're not ready to lead anyone. When I realized the Shay was willing to follow me, that sounded good. You know, as a man, you feel like the man, you've got a girlfriend, she's kind of following you around, you feel like you've got that level of responsibility, that kind of authority in a sense. But it raised a deeper question for me. Am I even fit to lead? Because leadership sounds attractive until responsibility shows up. Proverbs 25:28 states that, like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. Let's make this practical. Can you lead your thoughts? Can you control your emotions? Can you stay disciplined when no one is watching? Because if you cannot lead your private life, you cannot lead the shared life. The biggest thing I've realized in relationships is that they will expose you. Not your strengths, but rather your weaknesses. Your impatience, your pride, your inconsistency, all of these things will be tested when you're in a relationship. And if you haven't, the only things will be tested in a relationship. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people want the benefits of leadership without the burden of discipline. But biblical leadership is not control. It is sacrifice. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So let me say it clearly. If you cannot lead yourself, you're not ready to lead her, men. If God has shaped your identity, you will try to become the wrong person. For a long time, I was trying to become my dad. It, at times, broke me, I'll be honest. I always likened it to a superhero and the child in the superhero costume. I was always trying to chase this impossible dream of becoming like him. Even from young, I had this idea that at 21, I'm going to get married. 22, buy my first place. And then, in mid-20s, potentially have some children, as I wanted a family. But I realized the example that my parents set for me wasn't what God had in store for me. And I really struggled with that because when I needed my dad the most to try and tell me, go down your own path, despite the fact that other people were trying to tell me that same message, I was too stubborn. I thought I can be him. 16, 17, 18, 19, still thinking I can still achieve this unattainable goal. There were many times I started second-guessing myself, even questioning what God had in store for me, because throughout my whole life, and I love my family, but throughout my life, I'm always hearing the comparisons, you're sounding more like your dad, you're looking more like your dad. I blame my grandma, to be fair. Spending weekends with her and hearing her create the comparisons and saying I look more like him, sounded more like him, got the faith of my father, it in a sense had me believing I needed to replicate the person he was. But God showed me something. The clay doesn't choose the shape, the potter does. I'll say that again. The clay doesn't choose its shape, the potter does. God is not asking you to perform, he's forming you. I'll say it. God is not asking you to perform, he's forming you. And only once I realized that did I start changing my mindset regarding it all. My dad was a great example. Many people in the church would probably, many friends, family, and people in the church will also agree that he was an example for most, a role model to a lot of people. And I had to realize that despite the fact that I am my dad's son, that wasn't the identity that God had given me. I'm not Ryan's son. I'm Ryan's son, but I'm also Tyler Hastings. And I had to learn how to become my own version of myself using my dad's example to become what God was forming me to become. James 4 verse 6 says, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Becoming who God is shaping you to be is not easy. It means discipline when you're lazy, purity when temptation is strong, patience when you're frustrated, humility when your ego wants control. And if we're honest, everything in us wants comfort, not transformation. Transformation is an honest and an awkward path to go down. It leads you to question who you truly are as a person and whether that person you've created in your head is what God actually wants you to be. And many people stubbornly try to avoid that transformation because it actually forces you to change who you truly are. The image people think of you as, even the person your children might view you as. And that level of transformation, as I said, isn't easy. But God is not shaping you for comfort. He is shaping you for calling. And if you resist the process, you delay the person God is forming you into. But if you surrender, slowly, consistently, humbly, you begin to change. And one day you realize you don't think the same. You don't react the same. You don't desire the same. Because the potter has been shaping you. God is not impressed by performance. He's committed to formation. Without Jesus, this whole sermon becomes pressure. Try harder. Be better. Fix yourself. But the gospel says something different. Jesus doesn't just command change. He creates it. He takes broken hearts and restores them. He takes distorted desires and purifies them. He takes confused identity and reshapes it. He doesn't just forgive you, he forms you. The answer is not improvement, the answer is surrendering yourself. Jesus doesn't just tell you what to be, he makes you into it. That part for me was very tough. A lot of times, from trivial things about what aftershave should I wear or how do I do my tie to make it look nice like everybody else, to bigger things like where do I go to university? Do I go to university? Looking at end times and thinking, isn't education even worth doing? Because obviously Christ is going to return. I had all these different questions and without the very person I needed in those moments to answer them. And I realized that I couldn't rely upon myself to answer any of these questions. Because when I did, I became more stressed, more concerned, and more worried about this future that I have to work towards. And if I'm also being honest, I had this great pressure. Again, referencing my family as well. I've always been seen as my dad's son. And I felt there was this heavy responsibility to carry on this legacy. And as I said before, I had this idea of my dad being a superhero that I cannot replicate, as I didn't believe I had the superpowers to be the same. But through the transformation that God placed in my life, I am up here today. And I know my dad would have been proud for me to be in this position, but it took me to take his example and continue it forward. I've had many people in my life being a support to me to get to this point. The many times I've had conversations, well, he's not here, with Leif till late at night, with Phoebe and Keisha telling me, you guys need to go to bed. Conversation, going to Jermaine Wong's house and debating, going deep into theology, all studying the Bible, and those are the moments that were enriching, because they taught me more about my own faith and led me to lean more on God than my own understanding. Because when I relied upon myself, it led to a level of chaos that I could not see through. But these guys were watchtowers for me. They were the people that helped me to see through the chaos of trying to become a young man. Because I think a lot of the young men in this room would agree that the process of going from a child into a man is a very difficult one. And without those that are around you, those relationships or the role models there to help shape you into the person you need to be, it's almost impossible. Because God shaping us isn't simply just a thing of you wake up one day and now you're the perfect person. He places these people in your life to help you become the person that you aspire to become. Even take away from, in the sense of godly sense, but more just the person I become. I'm thankful here to have people like the likes of Sule up there, who've been with me from the beginning. He's one of my dad's closest friends, and at times where I didn't know even who Tyler truly was, he was there. Maybe not in a sense of telling me what I need to be or what to become, but just to be in support of me. And people like that are the relationships that I myself can look back upon and think, you were there when I needed you. And I am the person I am because of you. And then I take it to arguably the most important relationship I've had besides God, my mum. It wasn't just me who lost my dad, but my mum lost her husband. And I can't imagine how tough that would have been. But the relationship I was able to build with her has helped me to get to this position. Multiple times I've questioned, what do I do? Do I do this and that? I can admit that I've stressed her out at times. I'm the sort of person who often wants to be given an answer. And I'm thankful for her that she didn't give me the answers that I was often desiring. Because only through understanding, going through certain processes, do you learn truly how you react to different things. She'd always give me a push me in the direction of where I need to go, but it was always I had to figure things out by myself. But whenever I needed her, she always was there. And I love her for that. Because losing a partner isn't easy. I can't imagine that relationship in terms of losing your partner. But despite that, where many could have fallen, become weak, and kind of given up with life, she stood strong and continues to be an example for me of strength. Many young boys look at men in their life as their superheroes, but to me, I could never be weak. I could never give up. I could never fall short in a sense, because I saw what she had done, and even after losing her husband, the father of her children, she continued to push forward, and to this day, be an example to me. She's amazing. I'd like to also mention my brother. Me and him have been through a journey through life, obviously, from when we were born up until now. It's always been an ongoing thing with me and Jude. As I said before, we always were growing up as Ryan's two younger sons, walking behind him, looking sharp, looking dapper. We loved it. But losing our dad was a tough thing for both of us. I think if anything, it brought us closer together on a level that I know a level deeper than I have with most people. There's times where, oddly, I need somebody. I need someone in those tougher moments, and without even realizing, even if I get some kind of psychological, telepathic connection, he's always there when I need them most. I had a responsibility of being an older brother to him as well. Obviously, my dad himself was the older brother to my uncle Alex, and I always wondered to myself whether I was the best example to him to support him in terms of being the person he needed to go on to become. Again, transformation in multiple different ways. But I look upon our relationship we have right now as him being my right-hand man at times, that I feel like I've done a good job in that sense. And I can only thank God for that, because either of us could easily have gone in different paths. Having lost your father before you even started secondary school, there are temptations in life where you could fall off the wayside and end up in things that were terrible. But I just thank God that he allowed both of us to continue to remain unscathed by the evil that's in the world. Let me ask you guys all honestly, what are you trying to build that God has not shaped you for? What are you forcing that God has not formed? Because in Jeremiah 18, the clay was not spoiled, but it was not discarded. It was reshaped, and that is grace. Many of us in here believe that we're not good enough in a sense, and we've fallen short, and because we're not good enough, or those around us are not good enough, we throw them away. But God never did that. With an example of Jeremiah, doesn't matter how tough life has been for you and how many things you've gone through, there's always the chance for you to be reshaped into something more beautiful. It doesn't matter how traumatic your childhood was, how bad a prior relationship might have been, how awful those around you might have been to you. God can always reshape you and your life into something that you can find beautiful. End with the final line. Do not ask God first to send you the right person. Ask God first to shape you into the right person. Because until you've become that right person, God will not place you the people in your life that you desire. He will not give you that husband or that wife that you desire because you're not ready for that person. He will not give you those friends that you desire because you're not ready for them. He'll only give us our portion, what we're ready for. But a lot of the time we think that we want everything and we ask God to place these things in your life, but are you even ready for those things? Because God's reshaping you will place all the right people around you. If you look at the example of Job, even through those tougher times, God kept blessing him again and again and again because he himself was the right person and continued to shape his life into something even better. But yeah, I'll leave you the lines again. Do not ask God first to send you the right person. Ask God first to shape you into the right person. Thank you.